Welcome back to Ezzy, your personal AI tutor, and to this extended revision episode for Class 7 English, CBSE Class 7, and the chapter 3 Days to See. I am Gaurav, and with me is Swati. This is a longer, comfortable episode, roughly 30 to 60 minutes, so keep a notebook nearby if you have one, but you can also simply listen and revise. A student named Ria from Jaipur once said that she notices the colors of her school bus every day, but rarely thinks about them. Today, we will use Helen Keller's ideas to notice more carefully. We will cover the chapter map, all 3 days, vocabulary, themes, questions, modal verbs, sensory words, exam tips, and a final challenge.
That story is a very good starting point because the chapter is not only asking what Helen Keller would see, it is also asking us a more uncomfortable question. What do we already have and how carefully do we use it? Keep answering along with us. When we ask a question, do not rush to hear the answer. Think first because this episode is meant to make your understanding stronger, not just your memory faster.
Let us first place the chapter in context. 3 Days to See is written by Helen Keller. She imagines receiving the use of her eyes for only 3 days. Her plan is carefully divided into three parts. The first day is for people whose kindness and companionship have enriched her life. The second is for Dawn, nature, museums, and the history of the world. The third is for observing ordinary people in the city.
Before we move ahead, try to recall the sequence without looking at your book. What is the emotional center of day 1? What is the natural event Helen wants to witness on day 2? And what does she want to understand by observing people on day 3? You can answer in 3 short phrases. Relationships, dawn, and human life would be a strong beginning.
The chapter begins with an activity about remembering a favorite visit. Students are asked to identify what they could see, listen to, smell, taste, and touch or feel. The activity also asks how the memory makes them feel and whether the experience would change without sight or hearing. This prepares us for the main idea. Our five senses help us experience and make sense of the world.
Notice that the activity does not treat a place as something we only look at. A memorable place can have sounds, smells, tastes, and textures. That is why the chapter later feels so rich, even though Helen begins by speaking about blindness. The larger lesson is not that one sense makes every other sense unimportant. It is that every sense gives us a different way to contact the world.
Helen says that although she cannot see, she finds hundreds of things interesting through mere touch. This is important because she is not describing an empty or meaningless world. Through her hands, she experiences the delicate symmetry of a leaf, the smooth skin of a silver birch, and the rough, shaggy bark of a pine.
Let us slow down over the contrast between smooth skin and rough, shaggy bark. These are sensory descriptions. They help the reader feel the objects rather than merely being told that trees are different. If an answer asks for two phrases describing texture, you can use smooth skin and rough, shaggy bark. Do not write only smooth and rough if the question asks for phrases.
In spring, Helen touches tree branches hopefully in search of a bud. She calls the bud the first sign of awakening nature after winter sleep. The phrase presents nature as if it were a living being that sleeps and then awakens. The bud represents new life and the beginning of change after winter.
There is also a small but beautiful moment involving a bird. Helen places her hand gently on a small tree and feels the happy quiver of a bird in full song. She cannot see the bird, but touch allows her to sense its movement. The word quiver means a shiver or slight trembling movement. The movement is described with happiness, not pity.
Now Helen's longing becomes clear. She says that her heart sometimes cries out with longing to see these things. Her reasoning is simple but powerful. If she can get so much pleasure from mere touch, how much more beauty must sight reveal? The phrase mere touch does not mean that touch is worthless. It shows that even touch, which she calls a limited means in comparison, gives her deep pleasure.
Quick check. Is Helen angry with nature because she cannot see? No. Is she unable to enjoy anything? No. She observes nature through touch and finds joy, but she still longs to experience its visual beauty. This distinction matters. A common mistake is to describe the opening as only sad. The tone is admiring and appreciative, with longing present as an important feeling.
The chapter's opening also teaches us to look carefully at verbs. Helen feels, passes her hands, touches, places her hand, and detects emotions. These action words show active engagement. She is not a passive observer. She explores her surroundings through contact, attention, and imagination. This supports the idea that the senses help us build an understanding of the world.
Try forming an answer in your own words. How does touch make up for the loss of sight in the opening? A good answer would say that Helen uses touch to identify textures, shapes, movement, and signs of nature. It gives her interest and pleasure, and helps her recognize the people and objects around her, even though it cannot provide the same visual experience as sight.
Helen imagines that she has the use of her eyes for 3 days and divides the period into three parts. On the first day, she wants to see the people whose kindness and companionship have made her life worth living. This choice tells us immediately that relationships come before objects, buildings, or spectacles.
Yes, and the wording about kindness and companionship is important. Helen is not simply curious about what her friends look like. She values what they have done for her and wants to connect their inner goodness with their visible expressions. That gives day one an emotional center. Gratitude for the people who have enriched her life.
Helen says that she does not know what it is to see into the heart of a friend through the eye, which she calls the window of the soul. This is a metaphor. An eye is not literally a window, but Helen suggests that a person's eyes may reveal emotions and something about the person's inner self.
Here is a subtle question. Does Helen understand no emotion at all? She does understand laughter, sorrow, and other obvious emotions. She detects them through touch and other experiences. What she cannot do is see the emotions reflected in a friend's eyes. So, the answer should not say that she is completely unaware of feelings. It should say that she understands them differently.
She says that she can only see through her fingertips the outline of face. The quotation marks around the word see show that this is not ordinary visual seeing. It is a figurative use. Her fingertips help her recognize the shape of a face and identify her friends by touch.
Active recall time. Complete this sentence aloud. On the first day, Helen wants to see the people whose the expected idea is kindness and companionship have made her life worth living. Then add why she wants to see them. She wants to understand their emotions more fully and experience the connection that eyes can provide.
From an exam point of view, day one can support questions about Helen's values, the window of the soul, and the way she knows her friends. A strong answer should include the facts and the interpretation. Do not merely write that she wants to see her friends. Add that she is grateful for their kindness and companionship and wants to understand their emotions through sight.
And if the question asks what this choice tells us about Helen Keller, you can describe her as grateful, relationship oriented, emotionally sensitive, and eager to understand people. These are interpretations grounded in her choices. Avoid unsupported labels such as adventurous or ambitious unless you connect them clearly to the text.
Let us make a mini recap. The first day is not about sightseeing. It is about seeing the people who have made Helen's life meaningful. Touch lets her feel the outline of their faces, laughter and sorrow give clues about emotion, but sight would allow her to see the eyes, the window of the soul, more directly.
Now we enter day 2. Helen wants to arise with the dawn and witness the thrilling miracle by which night is transformed into day. Notice the movement in this image. The world changes from darkness to light, and the sun awakens the sleeping earth. She imagines the event with awe, wonder, and excitement.
The word behold means to see, usually with attention or wonder. Panorama means a broad or complete scene. Helen wants to behold the magnificent panorama of light. This is more powerful than saying she wants to look at the morning. Her word choices create a large, dramatic picture of sunlight spreading over the earth.
Why do you think she calls the earth sleeping? Think for a moment. The answer is not that the earth is literally asleep. During the night, nature appears still and dark. With dawn, light returns and the earth seems to awaken. This is personification because the earth is described as if it can sleep and wake.
After dawn, Helen wants a hasty glimpse of the world, past and present. Hasty means quick, and glimpse means a brief look. She knows that even with a whole day, she cannot study everything deeply. She therefore chooses museums where she can see a condensed history of the earth and the progress of humanity.
The museum plan is especially interesting because Helen's curiosity extends beyond personal experience. She wants to see animals and human races pictured in their native environment and the remains of dinosaurs and mastodons. The chapter presents the museum as a place where the past can be viewed and connected with the present.
The description of human beings also contains a contrast. Humans appeared with tiny stature but a powerful brain and conquered the animal kingdom. The important point here is the contrast between physical size and mental power. If you mention this in answer, do not change the idea into a general claim about all human achievements. Keep it connected to the museum description.
Let us check a vocabulary question. Which word does not naturally match thrilling, experience, tale, knowledge, or adventure? Think about what can commonly be thrilling. Knowledge is the odd one in that list as used in the exercise. More important than the option is the skill. Examine the relationship between an adjective and the noun it describes.
Helen uses should repeatedly when describing her imagined plan. In the chapter's language learning section, should is identified as a modal verb expressing suggestion. It combines with the main verb, should divide, should want, should eyes, and should behold. The modal gives additional meaning to the main verb.
There is also a difference between the emotional quality of day 1 and day 2. Day 1 is intimate and personal. Day 2 is filled with awe, discovery, nature, museums, animals, and human progress. So, if a question asks how her choices reflect her priorities, you can say that she values both loving relationships and the wider story of nature and humanity.
Up tak we have covered the first major idea through touch and the complete focus of day 1. Day 2 expands the frame from friends to the earth and its history. Remember the movement? First the people closest to Helen, then Dawn and the larger world, followed by the museum's condensed view of the past.
On the third day, Helen again greets the dawn, anxious to discover new delights and new revelations of beauty. Then she spends the day in the workaday world, among people going about the business of life. Her destination is the city. This choice is significant because she does not choose only famous sights. She chooses ordinary life.
Helen first imagines standing at a busy corner and looking at people. She wants to understand something about their daily lives through sight. This is observation with a purpose. She is not simply counting people or noticing their clothes. She wants to understand their experiences and human nature from their expressions and actions.
Now listen to the emotional sequence. She sees smiles and she is happy. She sees serious determination and she is proud. She sees suffering and she is compassionate. The responses move from happiness to pride to compassion. This shows that sight for Helen would not be only a source of beauty. It would also deepen her understanding of people.
A likely question is, why does Helen want to observe ordinary people? The answer is that she wants to understand their daily lives, emotions, and experiences. Their smiles, determination, and suffering would reveal different aspects of human nature. This makes day 3 a study of everyday humanity rather than a simple city visit.
Would it be correct to say that Helen visits the city only to observe suffering? No, that would be a serious misunderstanding. She sees smiles, determination, and suffering. She becomes happy, proud, and compassionate, respectively. The city gives her a fuller picture of life, not a one sided picture of pain.
At midnight, permanent night would close in on Helen again. The 3 days would end, but she would realize that she had still left much unseen. This ending introduces limitation. Even a rare opportunity would not be enough to experience everything she wants. The feeling is not ordinary disappointment, it is a deeper awareness of the vastness of the world.
That detail makes the 3-day plan more meaningful. If Helen had easily completed every wish, the lesson would be weaker. Instead, darkness reminds her how much remains to be discovered. It also prepares us for her advice to people who can see. We are entering the final message now, where imagination turns into guidance.
Let us test the complete three table. Day 1. See the people whose kindness and companionship enriched her life and understand their emotions through their eyes. Day 2. Greet the dawn, see light awaken the earth, and visit museums to view the history and progress of the world. Day 3. Observe people in the city and understand daily life.
If you can remember the plan as people, planet, and people in public life, the sequence becomes easier. The first people are intimate friends. The second part is the natural and historical world. The final people are ordinary citizens in the city. This is a memory aid, but always supported with the actual details in your answer.
Helen's final message is addressed to those who can see. She advises them to use their eyes as if they would be stricken blind tomorrow. She applies the same method to all the senses. Hear music as if hearing might be lost. Touch objects with appreciation. Smell flowers and taste each morsel with relish.
The imagined loss of a sense is not meant to frighten us unnecessarily. It is a way of making us notice what we usually take for granted. When something is always available, we may stop paying attention to it. Helen's thought experiment asks us to replace careless routine with gratitude and alertness.
She asks readers to make the most of every sense and glory and the facets of pleasure and beauty that nature reveals through different means of contact. Facets means aspects or separate parts. The world can be experienced through sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. At the same time, Helen firmly says that sight must be the most delightful of the senses.
Some students may think this conclusion contradicts the earlier praise of touch. It does not. Helen deeply values touch because it gives her access to the world. But she believes sight would reveal even more beauty and provide a wider visual experience. Both ideas can be true together. Touch is meaningful, and sight is, in her opinion, the most delightful.
The chapter also encourages compassion towards people with special abilities. Helen's experience shows that a person who cannot see can still explore, think, feel, learn, and form meaningful connections. A thoughtful response should not reduce her to her blindness. It should recognize her active awareness, imagination, emotional depth, and ability to find ways of experiencing the world.
That is an important distinction. Kindness does not mean assuming that a person with a disability is helpless. The chapter supports respect, understanding, and appreciation of different ways of experiencing life. Later, the supporting material introduces Braille and assistive technology, which strengthens the idea that inclusion requires both useful tools and the right mindset.
This is a natural place for a short Edzy study moment. After this recap, you could ask Edzy one exact doubt, such as why Day 2 includes both dawn and museums. Instead of giving a memorized line, work through the reasoning. Dawn represents the beauty of nature, while museums offer a brief view of the world's past and human progress.
And if you explain the chapter to a friend, ask them to defend one choice from Helen's 3-day plan. Which choice best shows curiosity? Which best shows gratitude? Which best shows compassion? Teaching a friend is useful because it forces you to connect evidence with interpretation instead of repeating a summary without understanding it.
Let us gather the key themes so far. The first is appreciation of the senses. The second is gratitude for kindness and companionship. The third is wonder at nature and the history of humanity. The fourth is compassion for people's joys and suffering. The fifth is the need to live attentively rather than taking everyday experiences for granted.
Now let us revise vocabulary. Symmetry means evenness or balanced form. Birch is a slender tree with thin, peeling bark. Quiver means to shiver or tremble. Shaggy means hairy or rough in appearance. Behold means to see with attention. Panorama means a broad scene. Glimpse means a brief look. Pageant means a display. And condensed means brief or compressed.
The chapter also uses carcasses, stature, horns, merely, mastodons, strains, tactile sense, morsel, and facets. Carcasses means the remains of animals. Stature means physical build or height. Horns are regular meeting places. Merely means just. Mastodons were large, fur-covered animals similar to elephants. Strains means tunes. Tactile sense means the sense of touch. Morsel means a small piece of food. And facets means aspects.
A useful way to learn these words is to connect them with the chapter's images. Symmetry belongs to the leaf. Smooth and shaggy describe textures. Quiver belongs to the bird's movement. Panorama belongs to the wide view of light. A glimpse is the short look at the world. A morsel belongs to tasting. And tactile belongs to touching. Meaning becomes easier when the word has a clear home.
The opening extract has a clear tone. Helen lovingly describes leaves, trees, spring, and the bird. The appropriate tone is admiring. It is not proud, because she is not boasting. It is not mainly nostalgic, because the focus is not on a past memory. It is not simply celebratory, although there is joy in the description.
Another expression worth remembering is awakening nature after her winter sleep. It suggests the arrival of spring and the first signs of new growth, especially the bud Helen hopes to find. The capital letter in nature is part of the source wording. But in your answer, the main thing is to explain the image clearly. Nature appears to wake after the stillness of winter.
The second extract uses words such as thrilling miracle, magnificent panorama of light, sleeping earth, and pageant of man's progress. These expressions create visual imagery. They help readers imagine darkness changing into light and a wide display of the Earth's history. When identifying imagery, explain the picture or sensation created instead of only naming the phrase.
Here is a quick vocabulary challenge. If a question gives you the word hasty, would you choose slow, careful, quick, or permanent? The answer is quick. If the word is compassionate, it describes someone who responds with concern to suffering. In the city scene, Helen sees suffering and becomes compassionate. Always use the surrounding sentence to confirm a word's meaning.
Let us move to the language learning section. Sensory words describe how we experience the world through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling. The chapter gives panorama for seeing, music for hearing, perfume for smelling, relish for tasting, and rough for feeling. These words are not just grammar material, they also show how the chapter builds sensory experience.
Try sorting them mentally. Panorama is a broad visual scene. Music is heard. Perfume is smelled. Relish means enjoyment while tasting, and rough describes touch or texture. Can you add another word from the chapter for hearing? Song is available in the text, as in the song of a bird. The exercise invites you to add new words, but any addition should genuinely connect to a sense.
The chapter introduces modal verbs. A modal verb is an auxiliary verb placed before a main verb to add meaning such as necessity, possibility, permission, ability, advice, suggestion, or polite request. The common examples listed are can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must, and ought to.
Let us identify the functions. You can learn a lot from this experience, expresses ability. They might arrive late, expresses possibility. She must finish her homework, expresses necessity or obligation. They ought to apologize, expresses moral obligation. He would like to have some lassi, please. Expresses a polite request or polite preference in the exercise.
The examples which should in Helen's plan are especially useful. In I should divide the period into three parts. Should is the modal and divide is the main verb. In I should arise with the dawn, should is again the modal and arise is the main verb. The verb after the modal remains in its base form.
Common mistake check. Do not call every verb in a sentence a modal verb. In should behold with awe. Should is the modal verb and behold is the main verb. Also notice that the function depends on context. May can express permission or possibility and might often expresses possibility. Read the complete situation before choosing the function.
Let us practice the situation-based examples. For asking permission, a sentence could begin with, "Could I leave early today if I finish all my tasks?" For an important deadline, "I must finish this report by tomorrow," expresses obligation. For advice, "You should consider all the pros and cons" is suitable. For possibility, "It might rain later today" works well.
For a polite request, could you pass the salt please, is natural. For moral obligation, you ought to apologize for the mistake you made is suitable. For a suggestion about a picnic, we could go to any park nearby expresses an option. In the exercise, more than one modal may sometimes be possible. So explain the function of the word you choose.
We are now entering the exam question section. The first major question asks how touch makes up for the loss of sight and hearing. Stay precise, the text mainly explains how touch helps Helen experience nature and recognize faces. It also shows that hearing and touch remain valuable through the song of a bird, music, voices, textures, and physical contact.
A complete answer could begin like this. The sense of touch helps Helen experience the world despite the loss of sight. She feels the symmetry of a leaf, the smooth bark of a birch, and the rough bark of a pine. She searches for buds and feels a bird quiver. Through her fingertips, she also recognizes the outlines of faces and detects some emotions.
The second question asks why Helen believes sight is the most wonderful or delightful sense. Her answer is based on her own experience. If touch can give her so much pleasure, she imagines that sight would reveal even greater beauty. Sight would let her see friends' eyes, doors' light, nature, museums, historical scenes, and the expressions of people in everyday life.
Before we give the next answer, think about kindness. How might Helen's opinion guide us to be kinder towards people with special abilities? A strong response should say that we should appreciate different ways of experiencing the world, avoid assumptions of helplessness, and support inclusion with respect, useful tools, and a positive mindset.
The significance of imagining the loss of a sense is that it makes us value that sense more consciously. Helen asks readers to behave as if they might lose sight, hearing, touch, smell, or taste tomorrow. The purpose is appreciation. We should notice beauty, music, textures, scents, and flavors instead of moving through life carelessly.
Question 5 asks how the author encourages people to approach everyday sensory experiences. She asks them to listen keenly, touch with appreciation, smell flowers, taste each morsel with relish, and make the most of every sense. The phrase every sense matters. Do not reduce the conclusion to only looking at beautiful things.
Question 6 asks what Helen's choices for the 3 days tell us about her values and priorities. Day 1 shows love and gratitude towards friends. Day 2 shows wonder, curiosity, and interest in nature, history, and human progress. Day 3 shows compassion and a desire to understand ordinary people. Together, her choices reveal emotional depth, curiosity, and respect for life.
Let us do a true or false recall round. Helen wants to spend the first day seeing people whose kindness enriched her life. True. She wants to visit museums on the second day. True. She wants to spend the third day observing only suffering. False. She believes 3 days would be enough to see everything. False. She advises people to value their senses as if they might lose them. True.
For extract-based answers, follow a reliable order. First, identify the literal meaning. Then explain the important phrase. Finally, connect it with the chapter's larger idea. For example, if asked about awakening nature, explain the spring bud, and then connect it with new life after winter. This prevents vague answers that sound emotional but lack textual evidence.
A short answer should be complete, but not overextended. Use the key words from the question and add one or two supporting details. A longer answer should have a clear opening idea, evidence from the chapter, and a concluding interpretation. For instance, when discussing day 3, mention the busy corner, smiles, determination, suffering, and the emotions these create in Helen.
The writing task asks for a descriptive paragraph about a place visited recently. Begin with an interesting opening that introduces the place. In the supporting lines, use specific details connected with sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. You may use adjectives, alliteration, similes, and personification. End with the most important impression or experience the place offers.
Let us build the paragraph logically, without inventing a full model story. Opening, name the place and create interest. Middle, describe what could be seen, heard, smelled, tasted, and touched. Ending, state how the visit made you feel and what others should experience there. The 5 sense structure keeps the description vivid and well organized.
The chapter's exploration section introduces Braille. Braille is a tactile code made of raised dots that represent letters of the alphabet. It allows persons with visual challenges to read and write through touch. The material says that Louis Braille developed this code over a period of 9 years and became blind at a very young age due to an accident.
Why does Braille fit naturally with this chapter? Because Helen has already shown us that touch can provide access to the world. Braille takes that idea into reading and writing. It reminds us that inclusion is not only about sympathy, it is also about creating ways for people with visual challenges to participate independently.
The listening material connected with the chapter discusses a conversation between Anuj and his mother. Anuj learns that a visually impaired student uses Braille. His mother explains that digital inclusion involves more than computer literacy. It includes digital infrastructure, services, screen readers, voice-over enabled smartphones, and applications that make daily activities easier.
A screen reader is a software application that reads text displayed on a computer or smartphone screen and provides audio feedback. The material also emphasizes that assistive technologies can support independent use of digital services and improve quality of life. The final reminder is valuable. Inclusion requires the right tools as well as the right mindset.
Notice how this supporting material widens the chapter's meaning. Helen Keller asks us to appreciate senses and understand different experiences. Braille and screen readers show practical ways in which people with visual challenges can read, write, learn, and use digital services. The connection is not an extra fact to memorize randomly. It develops the chapter's concern with access and participation.
Quick challenge. If a question asks how the chapter can make us more inclusive, would you mention only feeling sorry for someone? No. A better answer includes respect, a willingness to understand different experiences, support for accessible tools, and the recognition that people with visual challenges can participate independently. That is a much more responsible interpretation.
We are entering the final section now. Let us revisit the chapter as a journey. Helen begins with touch. She experiences leaves, tree bark, buds, and the movement of a singing bird. Her pleasure through touch leads her to imagine the greater beauty that sight might reveal. Then she divides her imagined sight into 3 carefully chosen days.
Day 1 is about people, kindness, companionship, faces, and emotions. Day 2 is about dawn, light, the sleeping earth awakening, museums, the history of the earth, animals, and human progress. Day 3 is about the city, the workaday world, ordinary people, smiles, determination, suffering, happiness, pride, and compassion.
The final message is to use every sense with attention, as if it might be lost tomorrow. Hear voices, birds, and orchestral music. Touch objects with appreciation. Smell flowers. Taste each morsel with relish. Helen believes sight is the most delightful sense, but she also asks us to glory in all the pleasure and beauty revealed through every sense.
The common mistake to avoid is writing that Helen wants to see only beautiful scenery, or that she visits the city only to see suffering. Her choices include relationships, nature, history, ordinary life, and different human emotions. Another mistake is forgetting that touch already gives her real pleasure. Sight is her most desired sense, but touch is meaningful too.
Here is your concrete next step. Close your book and write a 5-line answer from memory. Line 1 should state the main idea. Lines 2, 3, and 4 should explain Helen's 3 days. Line 5 should state her message about valuing the senses. Then add 3 vocabulary meanings and identify the modal verb in one sentence from the chapter.
Your final challenge is to answer this without looking. What do Helen Keller's choices reveal about her values and priorities? Try to include gratitude for relationships, wonder at nature and history, curiosity about human life, compassion, and appreciation of the senses. If one point feels unclear, use Etsy for an exact doubt and work through the answer step by step rather than memorizing it blindly.
That brings us to the end of our extended revision of 3 days to see for Class 7, English. Remember the central lesson? The world offers beauty and meaning through many senses, and we should not take them for granted. Remember the sequence of people, dawn and history, and everyday city life. Revise your answer frames, vocabulary, modal verbs, and sensory words. Thank you for studying with Gaurav and Swati on Etsy. Keep noticing, keep questioning, and we will meet again soon.